Recording.
So for those that are just joining us on the recording, welcome. We have our personal doctor, Dr. Elena. She is incredible. And she's been working with us for this year on our health and really helping us improve. And she's got a great team. And she's uncovered some things that we didn't even know were there, like my mold and Sarah's Clostridia. And these are big game changers in your health. So we can't thank her enough for being on this call right now. And I know everyone's really excited to jump into some questions. You're always so sharp. So just quickly tell us where you're tuning in from, because we know of you from Austin, but we've heard you've moved.
Yes. So we've been looking for a place for a while where we could just be more active, more physically active throughout the year. I'm getting ready to turn 50, so I really need to up my game with my physical activity. I can't get away with having a few months where I don't exercise anymore because it really affects me. And we found ourselves coming to Colorado quite often. And so back in September, my husband and I looked at each other and we said, why are we still in Austin? I mean, Austin's such a beautiful city. It's an amazing place. But in the summer, it gets so hot for like 5 months. And so we went ahead and we just did it and we made the move. We live in downtown Denver and we spend, every extra minute we can outdoors. And we are spending a lot more time outdoors. In fact, I just got back from 3 days of skiing. So, we're teaching my granddaughter how to ski and it's a lot of fun. So.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Wonderful.
And how are you going with the altitude? The Mile High City, isn't it called?
It takes a little bit of time to get used to the altitude. And I was just talking with Sarah about that it's really common, in fact, once you come to the higher altitude and the drier air, that you can, end up with like some little chest, kind of a little funk down in your chest. And it doesn't happen right away. It takes like 3 months before it typically happens. That's exactly what happened to me. I ended up kind of, thinking that I had some sort of a chest crud kind of thing going on, when in fact it was just because it was so dry and it was just taking time for me to adjust to it. But yeah, it does take a little bit of time, but it does make your metabolism go a little bit faster when you're at altitude. So I'm all down for that. Yeah.
That's cool.
any help I can get, So.
Yeah, well, I think I need to go visit you there to boost my metabolism for a little bit. I've heard altitude people have there's like good longevity issues with that. So if you're at sea level and you can
not good longevity issues.
Like there's some longevity pros for living at altitude. So look into that, guys. We can't talk about it all right now because we want to dive into questions. But I just want to say before we kick off, we've chose to work with you because of many of you know about my mental health battle. Sarah's had mental health battles, and that's one of your real strong points. There's a lot of doctors that will guess around things, but you just geek out in the labs.
Yeah.
And so if you're looking for a great doctor to work with, we can't give you a great recommendation than the fact that we invested to work with her and to get tested. So I would just encourage you guys, if you particularly got mental health things, and I know you cover a lot of other areas as well, gut health,
neurotransmitters, detox.
Because all of that has to do with brain, right?
Yeah.
So, but you're right. Like brain, the reason why it's my favorite thing, for those of you listening who don't know me, it's because I suffered with it too. I got so sick. I lost everything I had. Literally, I lost everything I had. My home, everything, my relationships. And it took me many years to figure out what was going on, and it turns out that there were several different things. There was thyroid hormones, my reproductive hormones, my gut health. I had infections, I had genetic stuff, I had, I was deficient in different nutrients. There was just a whole bunch of different things together that piled one on top of the other. It was finally too much for me, and so that's why I love to do it. So yeah, we work with all kinds of things, from people with ulcerative colitis to, other types of chronic diseases and autoimmune diseases. But the brain stuff is my favorite because I know what it's like to be there, and I don't want people there. I want to pull them out of there, and I don't want them to think that they're broken. And so yeah, thanks.
Oh, that's awesome. So if you want more information, just head to your website. What's your website? There's a website link on the page that you would have registered from, but just for those that are online right now, what's your website that they could go to learn
It's
more about it?
thanks. It's modernholistichealth.com. And we have an ebook, balanceyourbrain.com, that you can get an ebook from there. And then, we can stay in touch like that as well.
And balanceyourbrain.com as well.
Mm-hmm.
Balanceyourbrain.com.
Yeah.
Great. All right. So let's dive into the first question, because I also know that you, Dr. Elena, are a genetic SNPs nerd. So this first question is along that line. So Dr. Elena Villanueva, what is the best way to deal with toxicity/candida overgrowth with an MTHFR heterozygous mutation for a child versus an adult? So there's a few layers there of complexity. What are your thoughts on that? Let me know if you need to repeat anything.
Well, so when you say an MTHFR mutation, we have the MTHFR 677 and the MTHR 1298. And so we've got two different ones, but it doesn't stop there. We have an entire set of methylation genes. And whether you have mutations in the MTHFR genes or not, you really want to look at all of the methylation genes if you really want to get a true picture. But if you've got some sort of infection, so mold, I think, or you said candida and something else, what you want to do is you really want to make sure that your methylation pathways are open. So whether you've tested all of the methylation genes or not, it's okay. What you want to do is you just want to cover all of the bases. About 90% of Caucasians actually have mutations in several of their methylation genes, not just the MTHFR genes. And so one of the things that you can do to effectively open your detox pathways before you start killing off candida and other pathogens is to take a methylated folate and then go ahead and add a methylated B12 in there as well, because there are some other methylation genes. And if you have mutations in those genes, then you're going to have a hard time utilizing your B12 to make methyl groups as well. And so go ahead and do that, and that will help to start the main engines of detox in your body. Not only do the methylation genes drive phase 1 and phase 2 liver detoxification, they help to drive about 249 other different chemical reactions in your body. So it's really important that you get those main engines running. And so that would be my recommendation for you. Before you start taking supplements to kill off the candida or any other type of infections, or before you take any supplements to start detoxing environmental toxins, make sure that you're methylating for maybe a good 30 days with some methylfolate and methyl B12 before you start into that.
Great answer. Very specific. I'm impressed. For those who are watching and they haven't been immersed into the world of genetic health, genetic SNPs, or potentially haven't really heard the methylation word before, could you give us a quick overview of potentially what methylation is, how common is it to have dysfunction in that area, if you could give any stats on that, and why you personally really love testing for genetics?
So the reason why I love testing for genetics is because our genes, they drive all of the major engines in the body, right? So your genes are orchestrating and driving all of the chemical reactions in your body. Now, if you have the genes, if you have some mutations in the genes, it doesn't always mean that the gene is going to not work properly just because you have a mutation. It typically is influenced. In fact, 95% of your gene expression, or how your gene is going to function or not function, 95% of that has to do with your environment. And so, for those of you listening, don't ever get caught up into, or don't stay caught up in the old, belief system that, oh, it's in my genes. I've got it because, it's a genetic thing. No, your environment and even your thought patterns influence how that mutated gene is going to work. The mutated gene can work fine for your whole life, or it can start to malexpress because of toxins, infections, the way you're eating, if you're not sleeping properly, if you're not taking care of yourself, or even through traumatic, experiences that we've had, like the loss of a loved one or a divorce, or like long-term financial stress or different things like that. The good news is that just like your environment and your thought patterns can make a gene not work properly, it can also turn it around and it can make it work properly again. And so that's why I love the genetic work. In fact, the genetic work was the first big piece of the puzzle for me. Well, it was the second big piece of the puzzle for me. The first one was mindset. And of course, it's hard to change your mindset when you're in a place of such depression that you have suicide ideation, which is where I was at when I realized I needed to change my mindset. But I did it anyway, because that was the one thing that I had control of. It was the one thing that I realized that I could change. So I started really working on that. It wasn't easy. It took a couple of years of me constantly working, like learning how to play a piano. Like, you have to do it all the time to get better at it. But the second big piece of the puzzle that I figured out was that I had some mutations in my genes, and they were the MTHFR 677T and the 1298C. And I had homozygous or double mutations in both of those. And I didn't even know about all the other methylation genes at that time. But when I found out about that, I started, jumping in and doing research, and starting that whole process of taking the methylfolate and the methyl B12 really started making big changes for me. So I love doing the genetics, because it's really getting down to the root level of, what could be influencing your body's biochemical engines to work properly or not. Now, when we're talking about methylation genes, those are genes that will create what's called like a methyl group. So we'll just keep it super simple. Those genes create a methyl group, and that methyl group is a molecule that is needed throughout the body for like 250 different chemical reactions. Now, just like any chemical reaction, you have to have ingredients to do it. So for example, if you're going to make a cake, you got to have like 5 different ingredients, right? Like egg, flour, I don't know what else, baking soda, oil, and whatever, water. And you've got to mix it. And then you have to add a catalyst, which is heat. And so you take all the ingredients, you mix them together, and it's like a liquid. You add the catalyst of heat, and all of a sudden you come out with this solid mass that's a cake. And then the byproduct is steam, because every chemical reaction has an end product. So you take all the ingredients, mix them together, you add a catalyst, which makes the reaction turn it into something else. You end up with your end product and then a byproduct. Now, the body has to make methyl groups, and a lot of methyl groups, because like I said earlier, there's over 250 different chemical reactions that require these methyl groups. But if you don't have the right ingredients to begin with, you're going to undermethylate. You're not going to make enough of these methyl groups. So your engines are not all going to be running in 5th gear. The body is going to start rationing, and it's going to send the methyl groups where the body needs it the most, right? And then it's going to start rationing, all of the different engines that require the methyl groups. 2 of the ingredients that the body needs, and there are other ingredients, all right, other ingredients, but folate, and then in many cases B12 also is required. And there are other ingredients too. And so that's why the methylation genes is just such a big deal, because if you imagine that your body has like maybe 100 different genetic engines, let's just think about it like that. Let's just say there's 100 different genetic engines, but you've got the main engine is like the sun and then the solar system, right? So the main engine, the sun, or the really big one, where all the other engines are, need the big one to work. Those are your methylation genes. So you've got to make sure that those are working, because if those are working, then all of the other smaller genetic engines can also work as well. Just like our solar system, without the sun, our solar system wouldn't exist the way that we have it, like all the planets, right? So the sun has to be there, and it has to be working in order for all of the other planets to have their rotation and to stay in existence. And that's kind of like how our body works too. It's kind of cool.
Wow, a great explanation of something super complex. Thank you, Elena, for
I love the metaphors.
getting a head into that zone.
Yeah.
But so specifically, I correct me if I'm wrong, and this may be a very basic understanding. So I believe I'm homozygous MTHFR, one of them at least, is mutated. So I believe like methylation in that particular one is interesting for conditions like depression or anxiety, for example, because though if that methylation or that breakdown of like compounds is not working properly, your body can't actually make serotonin or dopamine as well or as easily. And so this is an interesting thing, I think, for people that are maybe struggling with their mental health, is to, if they're trying all the right things and they're eating all the right things and they're not starting to see progress, I would maybe consider to go a little bit deeper and have a look at your genetics and specifically your MTHFR genetic SNPs, because even if you're giving all your body the correct minerals and whatever, if you have those genetic mutations, you can't actually break them down into the neurotransmitters and things that you need. So I believe like if you have the double mutation, it was working at like 10% or something like that, 10% effectiveness, or what is the stat around that, Elena?
Yeah, so if you have a heterozygous or a single SNP in your 1298C, in your MTHFR 1298, that renders you about with a, like, instead of working at 100% methylation, you're working at about 90%. So it affects it about 10%. If you have a double mutation, it's like another 10%. So you've got like a 20% probability of a deficiency in your ability to methylate or to utilize folate. Now, if you have a single mutation in the 677T, in the MTHFR 677T, you're looking at about a 40% decrease. That's huge. So the 677T, that's a big player. If you have a double mutation, you're looking at about a possibility of about a 70% decrease in your ability to methylate. And so like mine was double in both. So I had the 70% plus another 20%. Plus, later on, I learned I had a few other methylation genes that I was having trouble with. So no wonder I couldn't like make my brain chemistry, properly. I mean, that was a huge factor. And so yeah, it's important to make sure that you're getting the ingredients that you need. If you can't afford the testing, then just take a methylated folate and a methylated B12. Everybody needs folate. Everybody needs B12. Your body uses both of those vitamins for a lot of different things. And so just cover your bases and take one that is methylated, like not a regular folate or regular B12. Take a methylated version. If you can't afford the testing, just do it to cover your bases, because this way you know that your body is getting what it needs. And then don't forget also that if you're having a lot of gut issues, and that's going to make it harder for you to absorb and uptake your nutrients. So if you start taking methylfolate or methyl B12 and you're having a lot of gut issues, instead of absorbing all of it, you may absorb just a very small bit of it. So that's just something to think about.
Great, thank you so much. All right, so this question, it comes from Lynette, and I might actually get you to read this one, Dr. Elena, if that's okay, because it's a bit of a longer question, and I feel like it might be better if you read this one. So Lynette, it's at the top of the Q&A box.
Okay, let me just look here really quick.
Click on Q&A.
Okay.
And it says Lynette Watkins. It's about her
Let
husband.
me look. That's interesting because I see 5 under the Q&A. I see Linda, I see Allison at the top.
Okay.
Will you read it to me?
Yeah, I can read that to you. It's not showing on your end, which is interesting. Okay, maybe it was asked before you were promoted to speaker, but okay. Ready? This question says, my husband has dealt with anxiety, depression, and OCD traits since childhood. He was prescribed Paxil 20 years ago and has been on a low maintenance dose of 20 milligrams for years. About a year ago, my husband started waking up in the middle of the night consistently, but we corrected his sleep issue with adrenal support and adding magnesium through a daily vitamin. Several months ago, he started working with his doctor to slowly start weaning off Paxil. He took 10 milligrams for several months, and a few weeks ago, he was hit with anxiety, OCD tendencies, and sleep issues. He's waking up several times a night and now has developed anxiety about going to bed. His doctor wants to raise his Paxil again to 30 milligrams to get his anxiety under control, and we have him take Lunesta to help with sleep, and he's gone several days not getting enough sleep. We really want to help him get off Paxil and not add sleeping medicine. They've tried adding ashwagandha and L-theanine and taurine, as well as some essential oils, but nothing has helped so far.
Okay, so this is such a great question, and I think that my answer might be of interest to most of the people listening. So many people will end up getting on medications, on some sort of psychotropic med, whether it's Paxil or Prozac or whatever. There's a million different ones out there. Sometimes they're combining them with anti-anxiety medications, like Xanax, benzodiazepines and stuff. So this is what happens. You go to the doctor, you're having anxiety, depression, whatever. The doctor puts you on medication, whatever it is, or a combination of medications, whatever they are. And then somewhere down the road in your life, either because you're just tired of taking them, or maybe because you notice that they make you feel really flat, or because your doctor thinks, hey, we should try getting you off now, which kudos to the doctor, because that's not stuff that you want to stay on for long term anyway. So you start weaning off, and then you'll either start noticing your symptoms coming back as you start tapering down on your dose, or you start noticing the symptoms coming back when you get off of it. Well, think about this. What's any different than when you first got on the medication? Did you ever go to figure out what was the underlying cause that caused you to have the symptoms in the first place? What's happening here? It's like you're trying to throw the crutches away before your leg has healed. The medications that you're on, it's a crutch. It's covering up the symptoms. It's not fixing what caused the problem in the first place. It's covering up the symptom. So when you get off the medication, of course the anxiety is going to come back. Yes, the depression is going to come back. And a lot of times it's going to come back worse, because your own body hasn't been allowed to do its own thing for 20 years or however long that you've been on the medications. Of course you're going to feel horrible. And the scary thing is that sometimes once you get off of it without fixing the underlying cause, and then you get off of it, then when you get back on it or your doctor raises the dose again, then it doesn't work at all. And so what we need to do is we need to find out what was causing the problem in the first place. And we need to start working underneath. So those medications are a crutch so that you can keep walking, right, while the leg is broken. But we've got to heal what's going on underneath, so that then you can get off the medications and you can do it successfully and you're not going to have a problem. So that's the answer. And so many people come to us with this exact same story. And this is the answer that everybody is going to get, because, I mean, think about it. It makes so much sense. You've got to figure out what was causing it in the first place. You never took care of that. And that's why as you're lowering the dose and trying to get off of it, it's not working for you.
So is there specific things that they could start with? Obviously there's like a lot of testing, which we would suggest as well, but assuming they can't get testing or they can't afford any other form of things, what are some basic things that you could start with that they could try that you would recommend?
Basic things that I would do is go clean with your diet. There's so much scientific evidence, and I talk about it in my 5-part series. There's so much scientific evidence about gluten and dairy and sugar. And we can't ignore that anymore and think, those are just only the hippies say that. Like, no, like there's so much evidence about that gluten can cause psychosis. I mean, it's crazy. Dairy can cause that too. And sugar just causes so much inflammation and deterioration of the brain and the body. So I would say go clean, eat super, super clean. And Matt and you, Sarah, I'm sure that, you can really help your viewers and the people who follow you to really show them, how that go, how do you eat clean if they don't already know that? You've got to do that. I would say, especially if you've had the problem for that long, 20 years, I would say do a 4 to 6 month detox program with some antiparasitics and antimicrobials in there, because there's a really big chance that you probably have some sort of infection inside of your gut that is now inside of your entire body, causing the release of lipopolysaccharides and other toxins that's just making your brain even worse. And then definitely a methylfolate and a methyl B12, like definitely that. If you do those things, and then after 4 to 6 months, then go into doing some gut repair, when I'm working with cases and we do all labs with everybody, like we don't just guess, like we're doing labs with everybody. Over the years, of collecting data, we've taken what the common denominators are across the board of all of our cases that we've seen. And what I have just told you, those are the common denominators. So if you just do those things, you can cover your bases. And then don't forget to work on, sleep hygiene. Get your body moving. No matter how bad you feel, you do it anyway. You don't have to kill yourself at the gym, but get your body moving. Go outside and walk. Do something every day for at least 30 minutes, right? And then make a gratitude journal. Those of us who, and I say us because I was there too, those of us who've been struggling for years and years and years, we start feeling like we're broken. We feel like there's something wrong with us, or that maybe we don't deserve, like maybe God's punishing us. I mean, we'll come up with all kinds of things. I mean, I'm just telling you I just named off some of the things that I thought after years and years of struggling. I thought, oh my God, I must have done something to deserve this. The doctors can't figure out what's going on. Something's really wrong with me. Like, what's going on with me? I started coming in with all these excuses. It took a lot of work for me to reframe my mind around my ability to heal myself, and to know that I wasn't broken, and that I wasn't being punished or any kind of weird stuff that I had just conjured up over the years. So you really have to work on that side of it too. So you've got to work on that subconscious and spiritual side. And then you also have to work on the biochemical side. And so, that's what I would say. If you can't afford to get the testing, and you work with somebody one-on-one like that, or in some sort of a group program, those are the things that you can do. And I would also caution you, don't think that this is going to change in a month. You're lying to yourself. If you've been sick for that long, give yourself at least a year. It took me 5 years, 5. And when I work with my clients now, we can speed things up in 1 to 2 years. Most cases in a year. They see huge changes, usually month 9, right? But if you're going to do this, you have to commit to the process. Remember that the time is going to go by, whether you do something or not. If you've been sick for 15 or 20 years, what's another year or 2? Just do what you need to do. And if you cover those bases that I told you about, there's a 80% chance, right? And that's huge. There's an 80% chance that you should start really making some big changes in your brain chemistry for the good.
It's awesome. Thank you so much for that answer. And yeah, to support what you're saying there about exercise for someone that suffered with OCD and anxiety, particularly myself. Recently I read this amazing book called Spark, when they go, and I just totally recommend anyone read it basically on the call. But it does a deep dive into exercise and its impact on the brain. And you can really get, not in all cases, but similar results to SSRIs from specific types of exercises. And it's probably one of the greatest needle movers for me. It's not like an optional, like we've always heard it, but like for me, I treat it like my medication. Like if I don't do it, I go off very quickly, which I'm assuming why you've moved to Denver. Like it makes sense because you have to, for mental health, it's non-negotiable. It has to happen.
You have to have it for all aspects of your health. So do you remember me talking about chemistry earlier? And I said that you have to have the ingredients, but then you have to have a catalyst. And the catalyst is what takes the ingredients and makes the magic happen so that you end up with the end product like dopamine or serotonin or whatever you need. Exercise is your catalyst. So you have to have exercise. If you do not move your body, you can put all the ingredients in that you want. You're not going to have effective conversion of those ingredients into the end products of your brain chemistry and all of that. Your exercise is the catalyst, so you have to get your body moving.
So good.
So good.
Man, I wish I listened to this 15 years ago. But
I-
anyway.
Better
I
late
wish
than
somebody
never.
had told me this stuff, right? I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
That's why I love to do this stuff. Like, I felt so alone. And, we didn't have this kind of stuff available to us. We didn't have these webinars, and we didn't have, these summits, and we didn't have this easy access to get to listen to all, to experts that were, where we could just listen to them and go, oh my God, I can start incorporating this, this, and this. Yeah, for sure. That's why I love to jump on. If you guys invite me, I want to be here so that I can share my knowledge, and hopefully people that are listening can pick up on some of the things that I'm saying and be able to implement it and start to heal themselves.
Oh, for sure. It's what we love. And thank you so much again for coming on and sharing your wisdom. So good.
Yes.
All right.
So this question is from Allison. I've had the excruciating task of checking my 43-year-old brother into an alcohol treatment center last weekend. He is on the last day of detox today and will be moving to the 30-day residential program tomorrow. Any recommendations for a protocol to support rebuilding his microbiome and health in general with supplements once he returns home?
Oh gosh. It's going to take time, right? He's really worn out his body by doing that. And people who are alcoholics, long-term alcohol use can really deplete your body, especially if your B vitamins, some of the ones that are like so important for our brain chemistry. And so, I would say definitely get him on a nice, a nice dose, consistent morning and night of methylfolate and methyl B12, like the highest dose that you can find would be wonderful. And start eating clean. So a variety, like the rainbow. He needs to eat the rainbow of food, right? So that he can get all of the different bacteria that he needs and the different fibers that he needs to house the bacteria, to help the bacteria to replicate and to grow. So imagine a garden that has not been taken care of, and even the dirt, the soil is like it's not even alive anymore. There's a few weeds in there. It just looks, oh my God, it looks terrible. What do you have to do in there? You have to go and you've got to put like new dirt in, and you need to put fertilizer like manure in, right? And you need to put, because that has different bacteria in it. And then you put the earthworms in, and you get a lot of water in it, and you put fresh organic material like compostable material in there. And then, within several months, you'll have this beautiful, alive soil that can house or grow any type of plant that you need in there. And that's the same thing with your microbiome. It's going to take time to build it up. It's barren. It's like a desert right now in there. It's going to take time for you to rebuild it. So eat the colors of the rainbow with vegetables and fruits. Eat fermented foods. If you choose to eat meat, make it clean meat and do smaller portions. Those of us who do eat meat, we tend to like the entire plate. It's like a steak or a piece of meat like this big, and then we've got this much vegetables and then too much starchy stuff. Your plate should be like 3/4 vegetables, and then just a tiny bit of meat if you're going to eat meat, and then just a small amount of a starch if you're going to even have that. You don't really need starch. You don't have the nutritional value in starchy foods like potatoes and rice. There's really no nutritional value in there. It's more of a filler. So don't be fooled. Oh, I'm getting my niacin in my starch. Like, no. Like, you really need a lot of vegetables, and then you can do a small amount of meat. And it's just going to take time. There are different supplements out there that you can buy to really help fertilize, the gut, so that you can house all of the good bacteria that you're eating. But you can eat the bacteria that you need.
Awesome. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, this next question comes from Fran. Do you know how to help autoimmune? I actually haven't seen this word before. Myasthenia.
Myasthenia gravis.
Mine has attacked my eyes, she says.
Okay, so we approach pretty much every autoimmune disease the same way. And let me explain why. Pretty much all autoimmune diseases stem from an an abnormal antibody response. The body's police, so to speak, are attacking not just something that's foreign that's in the body. That's what the body's immune system is designed to do. The police will recognize like that there's a foreign bacteria that doesn't belong, or a virus or something that doesn't belong. But the body can start attacking itself by accident. And if you trace it back and try to figure out, well, how did that even happen? Why would the body do that? Because I'll tell you right now, the body doesn't just malfunction. It doesn't happen. Like, we're designed very divinely, and our body knows what to do. But when the body starts doing that, we have to ask, well, what did we do that our body's attacking itself? And so we have to go back and start digging deeper. And typically what happens is that we have leaky gut. And so food particles and bacteria and all kinds of things that we're consuming start getting out into the bloodstream. And so the body starts going out and attacking it. But then we have to think of, well, what caused the leaky gut? Well, was it antibiotic use? Did you grow up in a moldy home? Environmental toxins in your water source? What are you being exposed to? Mold. I mean, there's so many things to look at. The body just doesn't develop autoimmune disease for no reason. Now, how the body expresses itself in sickness, whether it's myasthenia gravis, MS, Hashimoto's, whatever, that depends on the weak link in the chain. So, Sarah and Matt and I could all be exposed to the same things, right? If we were doing, if we were actually tracking it, we could have all been exposed to the same type of mold in the same amount, the same types of environmental toxins, the same types of air toxins, and the same type of emotional traumas. But Sarah could end up with myasthenia gravis, Matt could end up with MS, and I could end up with Crohn's disease or lupus. Right? It just depends on the weak link in the chain. What do our genes look like? What's our makeup? And so what I would say with you is, if you're struggling with that, have you been tested? And this is a case with you, and I mean, it's affecting your eyes, you said, right? So what I would do is do whatever you can to go work with a doctor who can test you. I don't have just kind of a general, if you follow like this, you can probably fix it. With something like that, I feel like time is of the essence. It's affecting your eyesight. And so, go and get tested. Have a doctor look under every stone. Have them check everything for infections, heavy metals, mycotoxins, chemical toxins. Have them look at everything. And then start working with that, and then we should see a decrease. You should see a decrease in that immune response where your body is attacking itself.
Great answer. Thank you, Dr. Elena. So good. Okay. So this question comes from Linda. She says, I'm having difficulties with breathing since I had traumatic news in September 2018. I've had physical possibilities checked out, and physically everything is normal. So difficulties breathing.
So emotional trauma can change your physiology and your biochemistry. It can literally change how your genes even express themselves. The day that the world realizes how powerful they are with the thoughts that they conjure up in their head, this entire world will shift. We will have the biggest shift in this world that we've ever seen. So if you had a traumatic event and now you're having trouble breathing, you already have some answers. Your doctor's already ruled out that it's nothing like physical, like there's a tumor growing that's obstructing your lungs or whatever. That's an emotional trauma. And so, your chakras or your energy points in your body are not working properly because you've probably suppressed that. You haven't really come to terms with that and been able to work through that trauma. So what I would do is find somebody who can help you work through that. Now, you have the traditional methodologies of going to, a counselor, a psychologist, or even a psychiatrist. or you can go and work with people that are, not in that traditional model. I would say that they're more in the holistic model. They're just, I personally think it's a more advanced model of working with emotional traumas, where they can work with it on a subconscious level and on a spiritual level even, so that you can actually be able to release that and cut the cord. It's like you're still tied to that trauma. And until you can release yourself from that trauma, you're always going to have that problem breathing. So, you can look into people who can teach you tapping therapy. So there's tapping, there is sound therapy, light therapy, color therapy, and typically practitioners who use that will use all three of those in combination, and they'll use tapping as well. And then you have people who do resonance repatterning. That's amazing. And a lot of resonance repatterning therapists also use all of the other modalities that I just mentioned. So they'll use them in combination. And it's a very, I personally believe it's a very effective way to actually help a person work through trauma, whether they realize they have it on a conscious level or not.
Great. So good, Dr. Elena. I hope you're all enjoying this. I'm finding this very insightful and a good reminder, because I think it's, I'm such a health nerd, and I'm all about tweaking my diet and making sure I'm doing X, Y, and Z and whatever. But it can be easy for me to forget about the emotional impacts of health and how our mind, if we don't have our mind game on, nothing's going to work, which is why I think often I have to remind myself, and I have a few friends, a friend in particular I'm thinking about, she was quite sick, and she was like me, doing everything perfectly, but actually it was when she decided not to stress as much about doing everything perfectly that she started to get better, because she was just too stressed about it all. So it's all well and good to learn about all this stuff, and of course we want to be knowledgeable about all of these things, but if it's stressing you out, just focus on that part, and I think everything else will follow if you have that state of mind of just being open-handed with life and just present and being grateful and thankful for what you have. I think that's where you need to start.
And I'd say, talking about the mind thing, what you're saying, Eleanor, about when the world wakes up to the power of our mind and that high level of consciousness and energy that's in us. I think I totally agree. And one way that I'm trying, I'm at super low, I'm not even close to being like a Zen meditator or anything, but I bought one of those Muse headbands thing to help train my mind. So I've got ADDs, I don't score very well in it, but it gives me something measurable to start with. And that helps. I found it had profound impacts on my life, meditation there's different types of meditations, for me doing a heart rate, particularly with anxiety, where it's measuring your heart rate and giving you a beating drum feedback on where my heart rate is, and just concentrating on lowering that heart rate has been really effective ways of me getting into that really healing state. So if you want to check out Muse, definitely I would recommend it.
Yeah, that's a really great tool. We recommend that for our clients as well. I was just thinking about something when you were talking about that, but centennials, those are people who are 100 or more, correct? Mm-hmm. Am I using the right word? Okay. Yeah. So when you talk to centennials, or if you read the articles, because, typically when someone hits the 100 mark, almost no matter where they are around the world, a lot of times you'll hear a story about them somewhere. And a lot of them, there is one thing in common that I've noticed over the years, and I noticed this with my own grandmother as well. And she didn't live to be that old, but she taught me a lot. And one of the commonality that I hear in all of them is that, don't create worry out of nothing. We create this stress on ourselves. That is totally self-created. That is totally self-created. When you have a challenge that comes up or something that needs to be done, you either have the power to do something about it, and if you do, then just do it. Don't procrastinate, or you're creating the stress for yourself. You're creating that. So you either have the power to do something about it, or you don't. And if you don't, then you need to let it go. You need to give it to God, or you need to just whatever your belief system is. but you need to let it go and just stop worrying about it. And that's something that I think for several generations now, like our parents and our grandparents haven't done a good job at teaching us that mindset. They haven't taught us that. In fact, I feel like they teach us from a young age to get stressed out all the time. I feel like that's a model or a mold. We're molded into that. We're taught to start stressing when we're in school. You know, it's a model that we've been taught, and it's not a healthy model because it's making everybody sick. And it's very, very difficult to get out of that model. And, you know, I've learned a lot. I feel like I have transcended a lot in my life, but those old patterns can still be there. And when I realize that I am stressing about something, at least now I realize that I either have control over it or I don't. And so if I have control over it, like, okay, what can I do about it? You know, what solutions are there? If there's truly not a solution, then it's out of my hands and I just need to keep moving on and not stay focused on something that's going to stress me out. I used to be so stressed out all the time. That was another thing that made me sick. I mean, stress makes you so sick physiologically. It changes your blood pressure, it changes your metabolism, it changes your hormones, it changes your ability to sleep, which is then going to affect your brain chemistry. And for me, it was causing all of the above. My blood pressure was really high. In fact, at one point, I remember I was scared because I thought I was going to have a stroke. It was like 198 over like 140. And I mean, nobody could believe how high it was and that I was still alive. And I was only like 35 years old when that happened to me. But I was so stressed because I had I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders with my practices and raising my son as a single mom and, you know, just trying to do all these different things. And I look back now, I'm like, oh my God, thank God I don't think like that anymore. I'd be dead. And so, yeah, you know, you gotta let that stuff go.
Awesome.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next question from Donna. I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, restless leg syndrome, among other things. I'm gluten, dairy free, and I seem to have a lot of medical issues. So any suggestions for someone like that?
So Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disease. So remember when we were talking about the myasthenia gravis, yours is, that's an autoimmune disease diagnosis as well. And what you want to do is you want to trace it back. Now, something like Hashimoto's, we see a lot of that in our practice. And it's not difficult to get that under control and to get that, reversed, so to speak. And, if you've been dairy and gluten-free for a while, then, and that alone isn't helping you to get your antibodies down, then, perhaps getting some additional testing done with somebody would be my suggestion. And actually, there actually are some books out there on Hashimoto's. And so, you might go through the books, actually. That's a really inexpensive way. I can't think of some of the names. I actually know these people. I can't think of their names right now, probably because I'm behind the camera.
Isabella's book? Is that one? Is that
Isabella Wentz? Oh yeah, amazing. Yeah, and then there are a couple of others too who have written books on Hashimoto's that have really solid information in there. And so, that might be something that you can do, is to go and dig through a couple of those books, and you should find similarities in what they're talking about as far as how to reverse it and how to get the antibody levels under control.
Okay, great. Thank you. This next question comes from Natalie. She suffered a concussion back in June 2019, and she's still dealing with constant headaches, pressure, eye pain, and more recently, insomnia and anxiety. She finally saw a functional medicine doctor, but he doesn't know much about neurology. I did a blood panel and found I am low in B1 and my ferritin is only 18. I've been taking high-dose turmeric for the pain, which may have impeded my iron absorption. Do you think this is related? What would you suggest to help the pain / insomnia / anxiety? I've been taking melatonin for sleep, and it has helped, but not sure that is good. Also makes me feel quite drugged.
Okay. So one of the questions that I would ask is, how did you recover from your traumatic head injury? Did you have, what level of an injury was it? And then, and were you doing what you're supposed to do, which is, stay home from work or school. You know, when you have a TBI, you know, if you're going to heal properly from it, there are protocols that are proven. You need to be like in a quiet, low light room in your house, and no TV, no phone, no noise. You need to be taking like mega doses of omegas, and you want to be taking, you know, super high levels of that. Did you do that? Because you need to do that so that your brain can heal well. And if you didn't do that, you can still do that. Your brain can regenerate. We were all taught in school that once you have damage to the brain, that it's done, like you can't regenerate that. We now know that is not true. You can actually see the changes on SPECT scan imagery. You can see the improvements where people go from like Swiss cheese brain, like holes in their brain. It's totally like a dried up raisin. It's like dying. And when they make the changes, you can look at the SPECT scans later and you can see that the brain has regenerated itself. And so your brain can do it. You've got to get the right ingredients in there. You need high doses of very clean omega fatty acids, EPA and DHA. And then also, something else that you didn't mention was chiropractic work. You know, if you had an injury, it's like a given that you're going to have biomechanical imbalances. And those are like micro malalignments of your spine, your occiput, which is the part of your head that sits on the very first vertebrae. Even your, even the different parts of your skull can become misaligned after a traumatic brain injury. And so you need to go see a chiropractor too. That would be my suggestion. That's what, personally, that's what I would do, is jump on the omegas right away, and I would go see a chiropractor. And just like with any other type of physiological change to the body, like if you're going to go to like physical therapy, for example, you know, you can't go like one time and expect a change. You're probably going to have to go for like 6 weeks or a couple of months, something like that, on a regular basis, so that you can get the body's joints to move. You have to remember that your muscles and your ligaments and your tendons hold the joints in place, and they allow the joints to have range of motion, you know, to a certain degree. But once you've had an injury where you know, like maybe football can cause a traumatic brain injury, you get smacked, you know, you get tackled, you're going to have a misalignment from the top of your head all the way down to your tailbone. You're going to need everything worked on. Now, if you're getting adjusted, if you're a football player, for example, and I used to work on professional and college football players and high school ones too, if they would get hit and get an injury, we were adjusting them right away. And so they didn't require a ton of adjustments to fix the problem, because they would get injured and I was literally right there working on it immediately. But if you got injured in 2019 and you've had like several weeks or months that have gone by, the muscles have now readjusted to this, maybe like this crooked position. And I'm exaggerating because you're probably not this crooked or you would notice it, right? But like, you know, if you've been hit, if you had a traumatic injury, that means that you had some sort of a forceful impact. Things are misaligned and they've been like that for a while. So all the muscles and the ligaments are readjusting to this new position that's a malposition. It's not the right position. And one adjustment to put it back in place is not going to hold. The adjustment isn't going to stay because the muscles are now used to holding you in this weird position. So it's going to take some time, like physical therapy, to retrain the muscles and the tendons and the ligaments and the spine and everything, you know, all the joints to hold themselves in proper position. And by the way, that can also affect your proprioception, how you see yourself in space. So if you notice that you're off a little bit, maybe kind of bumping into walls, or you know, like your eye-hand coordination isn't exactly what it used to be, or your balance is off just a little bit, that's another telltale sign that you need to go see a chiropractor.
I'd muted myself. My apologies. Thank you very much. We're in the city and there's like big, like our own Big Ben is like lots of bells. So I was muting. But thank you very much. I hope that helps, Natalie. Okay, so for everyone wondering, I'm using, for all the questions, I'm in the Q&A box. So that's where we ask questions, and the chat box is just for chatting. So thank you. this question, so we've been going for just under an hour, Dr. Elena. Maybe with these next questions, we can so we can get through more of them. We'll do like sniper approaches, and then we can keep moving. Like I've loved the details we've gone into earlier, and even Linda, who had the question about the trauma, she's in the UK actually, and she stayed up late to watch the Q&A, which is awesome. And she said thank you, Dr. Elena, it was worth staying up for, and she really benefited from the earlier answers as well. So,
Good.
so I hope this has all been very helpful for everyone. And Natalie says thank you as well. So cool. With this next,
we didn't say as well that you take remote clients as well, because we're on the other side of the world and literally down under from you, and you take remote clients. So it's like, we just wanted to make sure as well that you guys understand that.
That's just about all of your practice now, isn't it, Dr. Elena?
That's all of it. Yes, we do it virtually. So we do it on a platform that's just like this. And it's through Zoom, and we can order labs for you, and we can ship them around the world. And then supplements too, whatever supplements that you need. If you can't find them locally, we can ship them to you. We have people in Spain, the UK, we have
Australia.
Singapore, we have Australia, like we have, all over the place. And so, we can definitely do that. Sarah, I see like 3 questions that are all very similar. Can I just kind of like tie it together so we can maybe answer?
Great idea. Yep.
One? Okay, so there are a few people that I can see it up on my screen that are having issues that are relating to allergies to food, gut issues like ulcerative colitis, and skin issues. Some people are saying that it's like, and I will consider thinning hair also a skin issue. So, either thinning hair or bumps on your skin or dermatitis. And so let's talk about that really quick. You need to detox your body, and you need to heal your gut. Detox your body and heal your gut. And of course, in order to do that, you got to clean up the whole diet thing. Make sure that you're drinking purified water. If you do those things, that's going to clear up all that stuff. I've seen so much in the whole realm of skin issues, and it always, when I go back and look at it, like what, if I was just to condense it and like summarize what was going on, we needed to detox their body and we needed to heal their gut. Once we did that, the gut issues go away, the skin issues go away. I don't care what kind of skin issue it is, it's going to go away. Like I've seen it so many times. And so just don't forget, you need to do a detox, add some antimicrobials to that detox, and then follow it with some gut repair. So that kind of answers 3 different questions with one answer.
Great. So on the topic of detox, because I think a lot of practitioners potentially would have a different opinion on what they mean when they use the word detox. So what do you mean, Dr. Elena, when you're saying first step is detox? What are you referring to?
So whenever we're talking about detox, we're talking about detoxifying on a gut and intestinal level. So that's very superficial. And then detoxing at the liver level, which is a little deeper, and then detoxing at the cellular level. And you can do that through your foods. And then adding a methylfolate and a methyl B12. You can add a really good quality glutathione to it. You need to drink a ton of water. And so, that's how you can do it. It doesn't have to be complicated. Now, there are different herbals and botanicals that you can add to your food-based detox. So like for example, you could go vegan for 90 days if you're not already vegan. And just doing that alone, now healthy vegan, okay, that doesn't mean like going out and like eating all like starches, breads and stuff. I see so many vegans that are very unhealthy, and it's not because they're vegan, it's because they're doing it the wrong way. You need to fill your plate full of vegetables. You need to do a lot of research if you're going to go vegan. Can you hear my grandson crying?
No.
Okay. He's crying in the next room. My grandkids are visiting, and he's just making noise like little babies do. So I wanted to make sure.
No stress. Thank you for asking, but it's fine.
Okay. And so, but if you would go vegan, super healthy vegan for 90 days, add methylfolate, methyl B12, add some glutathione, drink tons of purified water, and even do some research on some coffee enemas. amazing. It stimulates glutathione production, which is your body's major antioxidant and garbage picker upper in your body. It also, glutathione also gets rid of inflammation like nobody's business. It's amazing. If you can do that, that's really going to help pull a lot of toxins and inflammation out of your body. Did I answer that okay?
Absolutely. Yes.
Right.
Thank
Okay.
you very much. Okay,
You
great.
Snapping away.
Yes. This question, what would you do for someone that's severely underweight? And this, because Dee, I believe, asked this question when you were talking before about meat portions and how we eat too much meat in general. And we need to be moving towards vegetables. But what would you say in the case of someone that is really underweight?
Well, why are you underweight? What's going on with the weight? Like with, I would want to know what it is. Have you had a doctor that's been able to diagnose why? Is it a true metabolic disorder? Like a hyperthyroidism, what's going on with that, right? So let's figure out what's going on with that. And then let's work with a nutritionist. Like on our team, we have a whole team of different types of therapists, including a nutritionist, so that we can work with the person if they need to gain weight or they need to lose weight. We'll actually get in and we'll start, on our end, our coaches will do the calorie counting for you so that you don't have to, but they'll just tell you, okay, you're going to do 4 cups of this a day and 3 cups of that. And I want you to do, 3 portions of protein of some sort of a lean meat or whatever. But, just adding more healthy calories isn't always the answer. So we need to figure out what's going on. If you're adding a ton of calories, but you've got a tapeworm, you're infested with tapeworms, or you're adding a ton of calories, but you've got hyperthyroid, meaning your thyroid is over revved. It's like revving too high. Adding the extra calories isn't going to really fix the problem. So we need to figure out what's going on with you. So that's going to, differ a little bit with everybody. If somebody is struggling with trying to put on weight and they need to put on weight, we typically, every case is different. Everyone is different what their body needs, but we typically will have them eating some animal protein so that they can get those additional fats and get those amino acids in an easy way. To get all of your amino acids just vegan, if you're severely underweight, we need to put weight on you. A healthy weight though. And getting enough amino acids when you're vegan can be extra added work for that person that's 80 pounds that needs to put on weight. So we typically will add some really clean proteins in there for them. But again, it's like a case by case basis. But we have seen that. We had a college girl who came to us last year, and she was like 78 pounds, and she's like 5'6". And we managed to get her up to 100. And it took a lot of work. But her issue was her anxiety got so bad, and then she started freaking out about eating. So like her anxiety turned into an eating disorder. And so that turned out to be, kind of complicated. So we had to work with other therapists to help her on that end of it. And then we were working with her on her calories.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Great answer. This question comes from Diane. She says, my problem is constant gas. Constant. She has no control over it. If she stands or walks, it happens all the time. She's beginning to be housebound, and she's very embarrassed about it. She's 71 years old and in good shape, except for this. Any suggestions?
Except for that.
Yeah.
That sounds like typical SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So it sounds like the ecosystem or the biome of your gut is just a little bit out of balance. And you might find that it gets even worse if you eat any kind of starchy food. It just goes like crazy. Vegetables can do that too. When you have SIBO, almost anything you eat can make you have like just horrible, horrible gas. But that's a telltale sign that you have an ecosystem in the gut that's out of balance. And so you could work with somebody to help you identify what bacteria is overgrowing or undergrowing in there. And then you could get on a gut repair protocol. I would say plan on a 4 to 6 month protocol to actually fix that, but it's totally fixable, and it really sounds like that's what that is.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you. There's hope. Good.
There's always hope.
Yeah, always hope. So good. This question is from Chris, is there any place you recommend to have testing done that people can just have the testing done without a doctor's script?
So the good news there is that there are more and more direct-to-consumer labs that are popping up, especially in the United States. I can't speak for Europe or other areas. So if you can find a direct-to-consumer lab, go for it. I would say just do some research. I'm not familiar with those because, you know, I don't use those. I actually prescribe labs for my clients, but they are out there, and there are a lot of them. So just do some research and see what you can find.
Wonderful. Maddie?
Yep. So how do you pronounce it?
Lissa.
Lissa. Oh, yeah, this is a different way of spelling it. I started getting acne before I hit puberty. After puberty, I started getting cystic acne and keloid scarring. I am now 29 and still get acne and keloid scars. I've done multiple body cleanses, strict diets, use essential oils, and added nutrients to support my gut. But I still have acne, and scars are always, and my scars are always inflamed. I had problems with dealing with stress in the past, and I'm still making progress with not letting things get to me. My skin itself stresses me out sometimes, which is my own catch-22. The first time that I took antibiotics was having my wisdom teeth out, which was at 16 years old. Could my childhood vaccines have been related? My problem's more hormonal than gut related.
So it sounds to me that if you have that constant inflammation in your skin, that there's something causing the inflammation, right? If you get that keloid scarring and you still have so much inflammation that just stays there, there's something going on that's causing the inflammation. So you say that you're doing strict diet, but I've heard people say that they eat clean and strict diet, and then when I start digging in and I ask them, okay, tell me what you're eating for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I find out that they're eating something that's a major offender, like a major, that causes inflammation in every person's, body. And so, the other thing too is that, strict diet, what does that mean? You may be eating inflammatory type foods that are just known to cause inflammation to begin with, and you don't even know it. Dairy is a huge one. Sugar is another one. Gluten is another one. Preservatives are another one. So, that's just basics. But you could be eating really clean, like for real. You could be eating super clean, but you could have leaky gut, which I'm sure that you probably do. And so foods that are normally considered healthy are actually causing inflammation. So let's take the whole celery juice craze for a few minutes. Everybody's read about it. Everybody's heard about it. So many people that are really serious about their health, they're all drinking celery juice. Well, in general, celery juice can be, pretty healthy. It's full of minerals. I mean, it's a vegetable, and it's got a lot of mineral salts in it. But what if you have an inflammatory response to the celery and you're drinking celery juice every day? And like I'm drinking celery juice every day, and Sarah's drinking celery juice every day, and Sarah and I are getting great benefits out of it, and you're just feeling like crap and you don't know why. And it turns out that if you would have run an IgG food sensitivity test, you would have found out that the celery, while it's considered a healthy food, it's just not a good one for you, at least not until we get your gut repaired. And so something is in your body that is causing inflammation. I would start with your foods. If you can't afford to do the IgG food sensitivity testing, I would do a elimination food testing, and just go online and look that up to see how you do a food elimination type of program for yourself. It's very restrictive, but it allows you to really monitor how your body is responding to foods. So I would definitely do that. You could also be having exposure to some sort of environmental toxin, that's causing a lot of inflammation in your body too. As far as the scars and stuff that you currently have, fortunately, there are some great things that you can do cosmetically to actually help with that. So intense pulse light, it's called IPL. It's not quite a laser, but it's kind of in the laser category. That can actually, they can use it on your face, and it will, it puts out a really hot light, a frequency of very hot light, and it will burn the sebaceous gland or burn the oil gland and shrink it down so that you can calm that cystic acne down on the outside. And then you can do some other types of lasers later once you get it under control and you're not getting new fresh breakouts. Once you figure that out with diet or toxins or infections, because parasites can cause that too. So you want to get all that stuff tested. Once you get it under control, then you can go and get like a deeper laser, like a CO2 laser done, and it'll just like resurface the top part of the skin. I had a few cystic acne scars as well. I had CO2 laser done and I've got baby skin now. So there are some different things that you can do, but you got to figure out what's going on the inside first so that you stop the new breakouts. Once you get that under control, figure out whether it's infections, leaky gut, combination of all that kind of stuff, then you can go and you can do some of the cosmetic treatments to actually get that fixed. Good news is that you can fix that.
It did it again. Awesome. So I know, Dr. Elena, you use Great Plains for your IgG testing, but is that the only test you would recommend, or are there other ones that you think are great, or for anyone looking?
Well, I mean, there are many different labs that will do the IgG food sensitivity testing. Great Plains is the one I use, just the one I use, right? But in your case, Katie, I would do an IgG food sensitivity test. I would do a functional blood chemistry panel, which is a lot more intensive and in-depth look at your blood work than what a typical doctor would do. And I would do a GI stool map test. And, well, I would probably do several different tests. I would want to look for infections, toxins, mold, leaky gut patterns. I would want to look at your immune system function. And so, this way I could put I could put all the pieces of the puzzle together and really get a good idea of what's going on. There's never one thing that causes somebody to end up manifesting a symptom. It's usually a combination of different things going on. And the body can only handle so much before it will start to exhibit symptoms.
Wonderful, thank you. This question.
Just checking the time.
Can I go back to one more thing?
Yes.
So it could be hormones too. Hormones could be another added thing, but the majority of the time when hormones are out of balance, it's because of some sort of infection or environmental toxin. So, it all goes back to the same things. Remember that the body can heal itself and the body can work properly if it has the nutrients that it needs. The body can always continue to heal itself. It can self-regulate. It can do whatever it needs, just like a plant. If the plant has the right nutritious soil and you give it water and you give it sun, the plant will self-regulate. Like, it'll do what it needs to do, right? Even if bugs come and eat it down to the stem, it can regenerate itself. It can come back. But if you take one of the vital things away that the body needs, or if there's a constant infection, like constant grasshoppers, and they never leave, then the plant will eventually, not come back. So it's the same thing with you. It could be partially hormones as well. But it sounds like if you're having keloids, you're also having an overreactive inflammatory healing response. So your body's overreacting in an effort to heal itself. So that tells me we've got immune stuff going on. You may have hormone stuff going on, but it all goes back to, let's look at what's going on in your body. What kind of toxins are going on in there? What kind of infections are going on in there? What are you putting in your body that's making it more inflamed?
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you so much. It's 20 past now, Dr. Elena. Do you have time for one more question?
Yeah, I can do one more.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much. This question is from Heidi. She says, we suspect my 14-year-old son has an ulcer. He has been suffering with stomach pain for months. The GI doctor wants to put him on a PPI. I'm quite concerned about putting him on that, as he has multiple food allergies and is quite sensitive to chemicals. Just this week, he had an ultrasound and an X-ray with contrast, which did not show anything. The doctor told us that this test would not show an ulcer unless it was absolutely huge. He didn't react well. Sorry about the honking. We're in the city. He didn't react well to the barium, which made me even more nervous about putting him on an acid-blocking drug. In your opinion, Do you think a PPI or a H2 drug is necessary for a short while to get the ulcer to heal, or would you approach things differently? Also, I've tried marshmallow root, juicing cabbage, L-glutamine, slippery elm in the past, and he hasn't seemed to tolerate those well. I've tried aloe juice, but I recently read that you need the aloe gel to heal the stomach. Is there a specific aloe brand you would recommend? Any other advice?
Yeah. So if you've been giving him, so some of the ingredients that you've been giving him, those are really great things to help heal an ulcer. But what's causing the ulcer? You know, he may have H. pylori. Have they tested him for H. pylori? Have them do an H. pylori breath test and see, because H. pylori is a bacterial infection in the gut, in the stomach part of the gut, that ultimately leads to ulcers. And so we need to address that. A really easy way to kind of like self-test for an ulcer would be to try taking hydrochloric acid or an HCl tablet. HCl, a lot of us will use HCl to help us to break down our foods and to digest the foods. If you have an ulcer and you take HCl, your stomach's going to burn. It's going to burn. And so that's a really good self-test that you can see if you have an ulcer or not without having, that invasive, type of testing done where they're not going to see it anyway unless it's huge. The proton pump inhibitors, the PPIs, I highly recommend against it. And I want to just tell you a quick story so we can finish off here. I had a gentleman who we just did a consult with about 3 weeks ago. This guy is a United States Navy veteran, and he came to us asking us to help him. He's very, very sick. His doctors at the VA, at the Veterans Hospital, told him that he has osteoporosis and he has numerous other things happening with him. He's extremely ill because of the PPIs. They've had him on, and they admitted it, and so they said, well, we can't have you on those anymore. But when he gets off of it, he's having horrible acid reflux, it's so bad. And so we're going to be working with him. But I wanted to share this with you because even the doctors admitted that the PPIs have now led to him becoming even worse and even so bad as to having osteoporosis where his bones are very, very brittle now. There are better ways to address this, much better ways to address this. You've hit some things on the mark with some of the things that you've been giving him, but I think he might have an underlying infection, and that's why when you were giving him those things to heal the ulcers were probably not healing. And so, maybe find somebody that you can work with. I'm happy to help you and work with you if you want. Typically with cases like that, again, usually with those types of gut cases, we can usually do some pretty big stuff within 6 months. If there's a lot of infection involved, sometimes it can take a little longer because we got to get rid of the infection, but usually within 6 months.
Awesome.
You're a weapon. Thank you so much.
Thank
It's been incredible. And make sure, guys, we'll include the links we spoke before. Balance Your Brain to get the free ebook, and Modern Holistic Health. If you would like, I think if you've just been on this webinar and you've listened to the amazing knowledge that she shared, you can understand why we're personally working with her, and we've invested in testing and things like that, because this is your path to healing, right? We're all on that journey together. So thank you so much for the time that you've made available. Check out those links as well just before you guys go. And if you've enjoyed today's session, we'd love to hear about it in the chat. Just to thank Elena for the time that she's made this evening, because we've really been blessed by it. It's been amazing.
Thanks.
Susan says, thank you, Dr. Elena, Sarah, and Matt. It's been great. Dee says, thank you so much. And Lisa said, thank you for answering my question. And yeah, it's all streaming through. Thank you, Dr. Villanueva. It's been very informative. Great session. Thanks to Dr. Elena. Thank you, everyone, for your kind words. And most of all, thank you for Dr. Elena for making yourself available to all of us and giving your heart and soul into every question. And we so appreciate that. You didn't skim over anything. You really wanted to give us your best, and we really appreciate that. And I know that you're doing great things with your clients. So if anyone is still looking for their own doctor and is particularly really interested in doing tests, Dr. Elena just nerds out completely on all on lab testing, and so she knows what she's doing. So it's one thing to get the testing done, but it's another thing to know how to read it. I know that was the case with us. Like, we got our testing done and we were looking at the labs, and I'm just like, okay, great. I don't know what this means. And so it wasn't until Dr. Elena's team went through it with us and explained it all that information became useful and actually has the potential to be life-changing. So very cool. If you want to dig deeper, definitely I recommend investing in that testing, and Dr. Elena is a great doctor to go through that with you.
Someone made the point on here that you're very concise, and I would 100%. That's a great summary of why you're so good. Very clear.
Oh, thank
very
you.
Concise.
I really love doing this work, like fixing people, showing them how they can fix themselves. I don't fix people. I just show them how to do it, right? And it's just helping all of you. I mean, if it gives you inspiration and you got some clarity, that's what I was here for. Thanks for inviting me, Sarah and Matt. It always makes me super excited, and to be able to just, talk about what I know, and maybe, hopefully it inspires some people and gives them some direction in the process.
Totally.
Wonderful.
100%.
I just got one more question here. How do we contact Dr. V? So that would be through your Modern Holistic Health website, correct?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I'll just copy that link in one more time. So Modern Holistic Health, if an American accent helps you understand what that URL is. Holistic, no W. So awesome. So thank you again. Enjoy your evening. Enjoy your grandkids. And I'll enjoy the sirens of the city.
Okay, I will.
But thanks for everyone for joining us. And I'll be sending this replay to all of you in a couple of days when we get the transcript, when we get the video all transcribed.
Oh, and see you all in the Healing Key.
See you all at the Healing Key. Dr. Elena is one of our featured speakers. So we dive into a couple of really cool stories. She had this lab works before and after to show, this is someone that came in, had all these issues. This is what their lab was showing. This is what we did. And this is where they are now. We can see it all on paper. It's very cool, very nerdy. I love it.
Relating specifically to hormones. You might have seen, like you've on other docuseries speak about specific neurotransmitters, which is amazing. But from adding the hormonal element, I think has been really, really intriguing.
My favorite story actually from Dr. Elena was from a young man who had crippling depression, right? And he was overweight, really struggling, couldn't get out of bed in the morning, just completely lethargic, fatigued. His parents didn't know what to do. They reached out to Dr. Elena, and she discovered actually that he had super low testosterone and really high estrogen. And by tackling those hormonal factors, she was able to turn him into a new man.
Yeah, and it was his foods that was one of the big pieces of the puzzle as to why his estrogen levels got so high and stopped his testosterone production, is because of the foods that he was eating. I mean, there were some other things too, but that was the main one. And he was just eating like junk food, just going out and just buying like more fast food type stuff, or eating like frozen dinners and things like that. It really messed up his testosterone levels.
Really
cool.
Fascinating stuff. So yes, this series isn't just for the girls, it's for the guys too. Matt learned a ton, and it's super relevant to guys. We made sure that guys know they have hormones as well. And it's important.
Yes, they do.
Andropause is a thing, guys.
Yeah, interesting stuff. All right, thank you again, Dr. Elena. We so appreciate you.
Bye. We appreciate you. Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.